Today is March 4th. This is the Salina City Commission regularly scheduled meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Jennings.
Here.
Commissioner Angel. Commissioner Crawford.
Here.
Commissioner Householder.
Here.
Commissioner Shirley.
If those that are able would rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll start our meeting today with a citizens forum. If there's somebody here from the public that wishes to speak on a matter that's not printed on today's agenda, please come forward and state your name and address to the microphone. Seeing none, today we have no awards and proclamations. That'll move us into public hearings and items scheduled for a certain time.
Item 5.1, public hearing on amended petition number 4348 to allow a break-in access to be shifted 50 feet from the east to on Magnolia Road. Sub-item 5.1A, first reading of amended ordinance number 12-10646.
Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This item is continued over from your February 25th meeting. In order to allow the petitioners to be physically present here to address their petition and answer any questions you might have. As you are aware, there was a consideration of a break-in access on West Magnolia Road to support the American Ag Credit facility, and what is depicted on the screen there is an aerial photo of the site on West Magnolia, and the two arrows there indicate two shared accesses that were approved in July of 2012, and as a result of that action, two ordinances were prepared. One approved a break-in access right here, and one approved a break-in access right there. The original proposal for the east driveway straddled the possible future property line of a division of Lot 1, Block 1, and it was located 242 feet west of Virginia Drive. So this is what the Commission looked at in July of 2012, and this was the proposed opening. This dash line represents a future lot split line with the east tract belonging to American Ag Credit's facility, the west tract for future development. So you can see based on that plan that truly represented a straddle lot line and a shared driveway approach on Magnolia Road. There was an initial approval of the request on July 2nd. On July 9th, you went into closed session for further discussions, and you asked staff to develop a more detailed ordinance with conclusions and findings and conditions precedent, conditions subsequent. The result, as I mentioned, was two ordinances were prepared. One approved the east break-in access. The other one approved the west break-in access. We also summarized for you the things that happened following that in September, where the agreement about future removal of the opening, should the property no longer be used by American Ag Credit, was executed and recorded. The City Commission annexed Magnolia Road abutting this site so that the city would have sole jurisdiction over Magnolia Road. The lot was purchased by American Ag Credit, and a building permit was issued and construction is underway. That's what brings us to our present request. And again, the location of the driveway was approved based on the submittal that you saw in July of 2012. This drawing represents what it looks like presently, and what has occurred since that time is that the improvements and the physical anticipated future lot line has shifted 30 feet to the east. So from what you saw in July of 2012 to now, the improvements here for American Ag Credit have basically slid over to the east by about 30 feet. So as a result of that, you can see that this now results, if you don't move the driveway, it results in a jog in that location. And so this request has been submitted requesting that the approving ordinance be modified to relocate the approved access point approximately 50 feet to the east. So Dustin, if you could go to that. So the amended request would shift the basically the same driveway in the same configuration, but shift it 50 feet closer to Virginia Drive. And the submittal was made by Randy Phillips, the architect for American Ag Credit. And in his request that's in your packet, he states that shifting the location would move it east of an existing power pole and eliminate a jog in the driveway. And so this is the plan that is under consideration for today. So if we shift it 50 feet closer to Virginia Drive, we're still allowing for left turn movements on a 2-lane roadway section and not the 3-lane Virginia Drive intersection. However, that dimension still exceeds the 88 feet that the Commission cited in its findings in support of the original break-in access. I think the thing that we would point out is that the original break-in access over here was pretty much centered in the middle of the site. Shifting it 50 feet to the east would place it entirely on American Ag Credit's building site instead of straddling the property line. So what we would request is that the representatives of American Ag Credit confirm for the City Commission that the plan is, if this is moved and approved, that it will still function as a shared access and provide future access to the west building tract. Because whereas under the original proposal it straddled a common lot line, now it will be located entirely on American Ag Credit site, which means that they would need to create some form of easement here in order to provide access over to the west tract. We've identified 3 options for you. One would be to approve the amended vacation ordinance authorizing the vacation of the platted restricted access to be shifted 50 feet to the east as requested. The second option would be to deny the petitioner's request, which would leave the platted restricted access in the same location at which it was approved in July of 2012. Or you could continue the public hearing on this petition if there's additional information you need from staff or the applicants, or there are options that you would like to see considered that haven't been presented to you. So with that, myself or Mr. Stack would be open for any questions that you have, and absent that, I know we have representatives of American Ag Credit here.
Mr. Andrew, the power pole that's called out on their drawings now, was that just not called out on any proposal drawings, or was that installed after?
No, the pole was there, but when you considered the request in July, they had not completed their full ALTA survey of the property that had all the details on it. So the location of that pole emerged on the survey that was submitted with the building permit in September, and may or may not have been recognized just where it was when the initial drawings were prepared.
And
if the pole was there, it's not a new pole.
Okay. And if I read, that was one of the strong reasonings for shifting that.
That was one, but primarily it's the elimination of the jog, because the primary justification for the curb cut was to allow semi-trucks, trucks with trailers to get good access from the site from Magnolia Road. And if you have the jog in there, that's certainly going to make it more difficult for that type of vehicle. So Dustin, if you could go back and we'll just compare the two again. Again, this is what it would look like if it were built as presently approved and the ordinance approved in July of 2012. And then the second drawing is what it would look like if you were to approve their request today.
And that jog there, that is a traffic issue for them. I know that I wasn't in favor of these curb cuts because they really went against what we had planned and done in that area. But I know that they said internal traffic is a huge constraint, and that's why they didn't want to use Virginia to get in and onto their property. But the contention is that makes, with that jog, it makes traffic much more difficult on their property.
It makes the internal circulation and the getting the traffic from Magnolia Road into and circulating their site more difficult by having that jog located there. But they would be able to speak to that better than myself.
Any other questions of staff? Thank
This
you.
That
would
I
be
know.
further east, is that right?
Excuse me?
This would be further east?
Yes. Dustin?
So
you-
is that, would that be a problem with coming off the interstate?
Dustin, you've got a couple of those photographs there, and it's really not possible to exactly superimpose those, but this is what it looks like. And so what you have is you have a 3-lane section here at the corner of Virginia Drive, and that is for a 3rd lane for left turns down Virginia Drive. Then as you go west from Virginia Drive, you have this taper. And so what's going to happen is instead of the turning movement being about here, it's going to be 50 feet east of there, but it will still essentially be a 2-lane section of Magnolia Road. But it will move it 50 feet closer to the intersection of Virginia Drive. If you look at it as a vehicle length, it's like 1 vehicle length closer to the intersection than it presently is approved.
How much did it move?
50 feet. From 242 to 192 is the difference.
Okay.
So, Dean, just for clarification, you said 1 vehicle length. You mean what type of vehicle?
Assuming that it has a trailer. A standard semi is 53 feet
Right.
long. Assuming a vehicle with a trailer reducing at 50 feet would reduce 1 stacking space, assuming it's a vehicle with a trailer attached.
Dean, the drawings that you have show the existing power pole in both of them as a point of reference as well as to point out where it is. It might be useful to put those back up and show the commission where the pole is on those plans.
Okay. You may have to blow that up a little, Dustin. So this is the existing power pole here, or one of the existing poles, and so this is the present approved location. And again, the primary thing that occurred was that the improvements here, the building, the paving, the parking, and everything shifted 30 feet this way from what you reviewed last July. And so what moved was the building improvements. What didn't move was the approved driveway location.
Any other questions to staff?
Did we discuss before if we ever need to make that, well, I don't know if it was discussed publicly at all or if we've looked at, in our city ordinance, if we decide to widen the street, how is that generally paid for and what is the process of that? My understanding is like what we're dealing with on East Cloud, we have to get approval from the majority of the property owners. Will that still be the case here?
Generally speaking, if we, first we'll look at the amount of right-of-way, and if that's adequate, then we wouldn't have to acquire any additional right-of-way. If it's not adequate, we would still have to acquire, and that's a cost to do that. When you get past right-of-way and you're looking into the construction, there's a few ways you can do these projects. If you're set up with, if it's a large enough development, you might be able to deal with both acquisition of right-of-way and the development paying for a part of the project at the same time. But as you know, we don't develop both sides of the road at the
Right.
same time. That doesn't really work out that well. So we have used a tool called a consent to special assessments in the past that has a time limitation on it, that if you know, we do have a project within that time, that and a property has a consent to special assessments, the property owner signed off to it, that then we could utilize that in trying to form a district. And it all depends on you know, how many properties have provided a consent, what the percentage of total properties, and the interest of others. If you can't get special assessments, you either choose not to do the project or you choose to pay for it fully with that large dollars. I think my recollection is there is no consent to specials with regards to this property, but I'd like to defer that to Mr. Andrew.
That is correct. This property was assessed for the cost of construction Virginia Drive, but there was no consent to special assessments for Magnolia, first because it had already been assessed for Virginia Drive, and secondly, it wasn't anticipated that it would access Magnolia Road.
My feelings are, and I know one of our big issues was how close it was to Virginia Drive, and I felt like at the time that the extra length that it was there, I know it's only 50 feet, but it can make a difference, that it was more acceptable when it was a little further away from Virginia Drive. My thoughts are, if we're going to bring it back closer and we end up finding out that this needs to be 3 lanes or 4 lanes, I don't feel like, since we've sort of, in a sense, helped them, that there shouldn't be some obligation at least. I don't know how long those consents run. I mean, what's kind of the standard length?
Kind of looking at the city attorney for that question. I believe it's 10 years, but I'll defer that.
We've been using 15 years, but
Okay.
we've
I
also
thought
been
15.
using it to match the, as the length of time for paying off specials grows, we've got some that are now up to 20 years in length.
And just my thoughts, just to cover, if this should cause a traffic issue, that there needs to be some commitment, maybe, you know, again, assuming this is approved, some way to protect, because again, we made a special condition. I have to agree with the mayor, it was kind of a tough choice. It kind of goes against what we're trying to do, and that is limit curb cuts. And now we're bringing it 50 feet even closer to Virginia Drive, and my thoughts are, if it starts to cause a traffic problem, that we maybe ought to have some form of protection in there, that if we need to widen the street, we've got a commitment from them. I don't know that the traffic will ever get to that amount. It seems relatively light, and I don't anticipate the airport growing a whole lot more, but I just think some kind of commitment would be in order, maybe, if we...
Yeah. It is difficult to tell, and quite honestly, a good part of the property on the north side of the road is not going to be able to
Right.
develop. But that might be a good question to put our city engineer on the spot with regards to the traffic, what he would perceive to be the traffic impact. Dan, are you able to somewhat address if you believe this would, moving of this driveway would create any form of a traffic issue?
I mean, we were not very much in favor of it before. It's close to the intersection, so as far as the same issues apply the last time we discussed it, it's, you know, 3,000 to 4,000 on the road now. You know, how much will it grow is the big question. So, you know, it's an arterial, and closer to the intersection, the area of influence. I mean, as Virginia Drive develops, we do believe that area will develop. Closer to the intersection, there's less stacking. You're closer to the intersection, closer to the signal. We believe this is worse than before. So, I mean, that's a fair assessment. It wasn't 50 feet closer, like you're both saying, was a challenge before, and 50 feet closer is even worse.
Yeah, my thoughts are, if you put one semi and it's 50 feet closer, it doesn't take that much longer for the traffic to back up and then get into the intersection. Now, granted, there's a turn lane at that spot. It would have to back up pretty far to have an effect on there, if it ever could. I don't know that it could, but I just would like some protection in anticipation if this area does develop and we get to a traffic count, that, you know, I'd want some commitment on part of them. And it's a gamble, I guess, on their part, and a gamble on ours. If the traffic counts never get there and it never develops and it's not a problem, then we never have to widen, it's not them. But if as a direct result, that turn lane is causing backups, then I think there should be some obligation on their part to cover that expense, or at least agree to be a part of that expense that benefited them.
Dan, if the turn location remains where it was previously approved and the site's moved over 50 feet, or 30 feet, I believe is correct, and it creates that little jog as you enter the site, do you see that creating any kind of a traffic issue that would back out into Magnolia? And if so, how would that weigh against the distance of the driveway from the intersection of Virginia?
You talking right?
Yeah, there was some talk earlier about whether that jog actually creates an internal circulation issue. And my question is, do you foresee that? And if so, does it have any effect out on Magnolia? And then if it does, how does that weigh against moving the driveway over?
Yeah, we don't see, I mean, this radius was for trucks, so we don't see why that creates an issue now, or I guess would for internal circulation. So yeah, I would have to hear from the applicant to see what kind of internal circulation problems that causes, because there's quite a bit of space here. It's a good radius. I guess the same turn this truck tries to make this turn and go this way, it's the same movement, so it's not going to be any different. This is the main thing that I don't know if this is their concern here or not, but it's the radii they had before were good for trucks. So I'd like to hear from them on that. It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't anticipate the semis would go complete circle through the parking lot. I don't even know if they could get out of there. Are they anticipating that?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the plan is that they would go back out to Virginia. But again, we can hear from the applicant on that, because I think it'd be pretty tough to get a semi wrapped around that little parking lot up front. But
It might be. I've seen some semi-drivers do
Yeah.
some awful tight things. Any other question? Mr. Andrew, I was going to just ask you a few questions about the property owner to the west. I'm assuming that they were contacted on this, and did they have any concerns up front wanting to get that entry right-of-way or easement?
Well, they were notified of both last Monday's and today's hearing, and we didn't hear any feedback back from... We're here. Okay.
Okay, okay,
But I guess they can speak for themselves.
okay.
But the one thing we wanted to point out is that there were two ordinances, one that approved the east curb cut, a separate ordinance that approved the west curb cut. The west curb cut is unchanged by this. The only thing that is in question is where is that center turn point going to be in relation to Virginia Drive.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions to staff? I'd like to go ahead and open this up to public comment. Anybody that has a comment on this item, please come forward and just state your name and address for the record. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jim Marietta, and I'm here in representation for Comco of Kansas, Inc., the owner west and south of this property. And I guess I have a question, first of all, is because I wasn't aware of this, that west curb cut, the one further west than the one you're talking about, that has been approved and is okay from the standpoint of construction?
Still require a cooperative effort between yourselves and this property owner to construct.
Okay.
Go ahead and repeat that. Yeah. Come on up and, yeah.
Because it is a shared opening that would be shared by Comco and whoever owns that west track, they would have to come in and negotiate a shared driveway agreement with each other and have a shared access so they could drive across each other's property. Those are not uncommon, but that step would be done before anything actually got constructed there. But the location, the width, all of that is approved, and that's been recorded.
Yep.
And we are in support of that shared access, so we appreciate that that's been added. We weren't aware of that. The second question is there, a process by which that can be eliminated? So in other words, I mean, we, like I said, have interest in making sure that that west entrance is maintained, or at least the opportunity for it. But if the second lot, as it develops here, is there a way that it can be eliminated, so then we're kind of stuck without access further west of this small development now?
I don't believe so. I'll look for backup on that, but I think that was one
Yeah,
of
one of our
the initial concerns in establishing that ordinance.
Yeah, generally, it's just a timing question. In this case, it presumes a location, presuming the two property owners can agree on what they need to do. From a regulatory perspective, it presumes a location. If you didn't have that west driveway access, it's just a matter of the development, the type of development, the access needed, and a review at that time. And I think, as most folks are aware, we wouldn't typically, if someone brings a development, wouldn't in essence landlock a property and keep them from accessing the road. So it's more of a question of where and when.
Well, I was thinking, like the mayor was, that we had actually written in language, did we not, that said that part of the agreement was that they would sort of pre-agree that 50%, the idea being that they wouldn't say, get rid of that entrance and put 100% cost on the Mariettas or something.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, in this case, it's already somewhat, part of it's predetermined. Without this, it would be more of a question of where and when. We still have a question of when, but we have the where fixed right now.
I think part of that consideration was encouraging the shared access so we don't end up with 3 access points on Magnolia. So the conversation was the condition of developing the second lot was having the shared access point in place.
Yeah, I thought we'd kind of actually thought ahead on that one.
All right, well, that's good. That's good news. So we appreciate that. You bet. And the third question is that I do support, Aaron, the question that you had about protection from further development, that as that second entrance is developed, and if it is necessary to widen that third turn lane in there or whatever might be adequate, is that since it's going to benefit all those properties that do face Magnolia, that there is some attention, I guess, or some discussion given to the value of that starting from Virginia Drive going west, so that, you know, there isn't a get out of jail free card for American Ag Credit, because we all know they have plenty of money, at least a loan. But that is then prorated for everybody that would be involved and would benefit from that.
Yeah, that's generally the hope, because what we run into is what we're doing on Cloud Street, and that's where it needs to be improved. But I think we've run into sending notes out there, and people say, we don't want to pay for it. Dylan should pay for it.
Right.
And Dylan says, hey, we're only one part of it. And you just, the way our ordinance, and it just, basically nobody wants to pay for it. So then the community at large either has to pay for it or it doesn't get fixed. And so I just think trying to write in those kind of protections in future developments like this are just in the city's best interest. And again, if it's not needed, nobody's out any money, but we just want to make sure that one part of, we don't run into this unimproved area because nobody wants to pay for it. So.
Yeah, I think if somebody could have gotten out of the benefit district on that, it seems like it could have been American Ag Credit if they would have went with the plan for access from Virginia Drive. And then Magnolia expansion to 4-lane and everything wouldn't have affected their property. But they're one of the primary initial access, and as will each one of the 3. And our traffic flow and our design in that area was based on not having excessive curve cuts through there. So I'm sure at some point in time something will have to be done.
Okay. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment?
I was just going to comment for Mr. Marietta's benefit that I will, before he leaves, I will get him a copy of the ordinance that was passed for the West Driveway Agreement, so he has that for his records.
Good. Thank you.
Dan, one quick question while you're up there. Did they, when they shifted the whole thing, I know we have all our landscape standards, that didn't affect anything when they shifted their property over to the east some more, did they? Are they having to leave green space off to the west now, or no?
Yes, there was some, when the initial shifting, there was some initial, the initial submittal, we asked for an increase in the green space buffer along Virginia Drive, so it was fairly large, it shrunk, and then it increased again slightly, but it didn't move any driveways.
But so they're going to have to, you're basically saying they are going to have to shift some stuff onto the west side now?
No,
Or no?
it's not going to change the landscaping or anything. It would change where the landscaping would end up if the driveway moved, because areas that are shown as green space on their plan would become driveway, but then west of the driveway, there'll be an opportunity for some green space, so we'll just trade it out.
Okay, okay.
Do we have a representative from American Ag Credit that wants to address this? I think you may or may not have heard the comments, just kind of how that jog affects the traffic flow. And
Randy Phillips, Spangenberg Phillips Tice Architecture, and I did represent American Ag Credit at the original hearing here for the first request for the curb cut. And I guess answering the first question possibly might be your request about American Ag Credit respecting responsibility for any future improvements or contingent right-of-way for that. I've just confirmed that they will be amenable to listening to language on that if you want to include that. Okay. They're happy to do that. And Mr. Andrews is correct. At the time we were here the last time, the reason why we were here for the curb cut at the time, we were sort of early in the process, is that was one of the conditions of the sale of the property. So prior to closing, that had to be confirmed or denied at that point. So since it was confirmed and it was approved, then the property was purchased, and we did not have at the time we were here the completed ALTA survey. When what really happened is that if you go back and look at our drawings, I believe you can go through what was originally submitted, and I have a copy of it here, is if you actually superimpose the ALTA survey on it, the power pole ended up in the middle of our drive as it was approved. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of the drawing that we sent in with for the permit actually moved it further to the west in order to avoid the pole. And as we've talked to clients, our clients and their clients and customers, is that they would love to see that straightened out in order to ease the access by the larger vehicles. But it was also in working with staff is the reason why the improved areas or the impervious areas was moved further to the east, is because at their direction, their request, they asked that we reduce the amount of paving. So we had wider drives all the way around the building. So on the north and to the east, we reduced the drives there. As we were completing the engineering on detention and retainage and working with staff on the approval of the final permit, then basically the constructed area, it was compressed further to the east. So as we left the drive where it was approved and we received the survey, then the power pole conflict was discovered. And so that's why we're here today, because it was partially the fact that we were here early in the process without having all the available information to us. And once it was approved and once we found out where the power pole was, there is an issue with the power pole, but also a matter of making the circulation better for the customers, because with the larger vehicles, they won't circulate around the building. That's why it was important to have two access points from one street to the other, or had it been another location, they would have had at least two access points onto another major arterial. Very important for them, for their customer base, to have that. If you look at you can probably go look at the resisting situation, and you can see at any time there's usually a large vehicle pulling a trailer out there on a daily basis. So I guess I wanted to address both points, is that the approach further west, and if this is approved and there is any issue as far as expanding, then they don't have any problem with having responsibility for that. And if it does expand at this point, obviously that will be a decel lane for a right turn. So that means actually the approach would be moved further away from the traffic lanes. So hopefully it's a situation that as improves and the streets are widened, then obviously engineering can solve those other problems. So
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any other questions, but I think on both accounts, I think they're be happy to answer anything else here.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Have further public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on this matter, bring it back to commission for any discussion and action. I said earlier, I really wasn't in favor of the curb cuts, and now that they are there, I would like to see the traffic pattern and the flow done the way that the business client would like. I know we're 50 feet closer to the intersection, and someday I think that's just going to maybe sooner push our hand on having to do something for a road out there. But I would like to see that moved. I think the only, and I'm sure staff's already taken care of this, but the only thing that I want to reiterate is that right away that we take care of the easement allowing access to that Lot 2 and get that cleaned up while it's all fresh, unless there's something dependent upon the actual site plan of whoever builds on Lot 2 that's necessary in order to do that. But I would think with the location of the drive, that pins down where that right-of-way would need to happen, or the easement would need to happen in order to get access to the other property. Sir, please.
Apologize for forgetting this, but also one of the questions that staff had earlier about planning for the access, the common access, and they agree that there should be language in there that this will still remain as a common access for the remainder of the property. So what we have, where initially we had shown it drawn developed all at once, and you can see on the drawing there that we have the access back to the west approach. So anything for future development on the west half of the property, this would serve as a common access. So for the language that staff would like to include in that, they're very agreeable for that.
Thank you. Any further discussion, questions?
No, just what we're going to add into the motion, that's the main thing, which we can figure that out as we'll just talk as we roll, like we always do.
Currently, does it include significant enough language for, I know it includes significant enough language for the lot directly to the west, but does it take care of the easement issues? Is that necessary at this time? Do we need to offer anything as part of the motion in order to take care of those things, or?
I look to Mr. Andrews, is that easement situation something we should expect to be able to address between first and second, or what do you think?
At present, the way that the amended ordinance is drafted, it does not address the dedication of the easement, but it's somewhat premature at this point to know exactly, until you know in
That site
terms of
plan.
dedicating an actual instrument that had a physical location to it or legal description. You really couldn't do that at this point till you knew what was going to go here. I think from my perspective that if it was reemphasized in the motion that this is a shared access and that this is also access for the west tract, that is one way to address it. The other way would be between first and second reading, Mr. Bankston and I could work on some language that would make that a condition subsequent, that before anything happened on the development of the west half, that would be in place. That would be similar to what was done with the west opening, which is shared between Comco and American Ag Credit. But those would be the two ways to address it.
Dean, a quick question on that. Is there, and this has nothing to do with American Ag Credit, I'm speaking more in general with any development, but in a situation like this, is it possible, I mean, if we look at the approach of requiring that to occur, that easement and location and so forth of that access drive into the common drive, for the western lot to occur at development, is it possible to first sell the lot to some other party and for that party not to be able to access the common access drive?
Well, I was going to explain that we do have an administrative lot split process. And so today, this is one large platted lot under one ownership. In order to split it and create a second parcel, they have to bring a survey to me, which I have to review, and I have to determine that the second tract will have access to utilities, will have legal access, will be buildable, all those things, so that the place that staff would most likely address it is somebody said, I've got a buyer for this, we want to split this, and here's the new property line, and we would say, I see you do not have access to Magnolia Road for this tract you're proposing. How do you propose to get that? That is the point at which American Ag Credit would have to create an access easement and grant that to the prospective buyer to get access. So I'll give you a further example. There was a owner in Wichita who purchased through a lot split the very southwest corner of the Walmart parking lot. That very southwest corner has frontage on 9th Street, has frontage on Schilling Road, but it doesn't have any driveways. So I said, before I will approve that split, Walmart has to grant an access easement from Schilling Road over to that site to prove that it has legal access. So that's what was done. And so that, from a timing standpoint, the time where that makes the most sense is when American Ag Credit wishes to sell off the west half. In order to make that a buildable parcel, the lot split has to be approved by staff, and in order for staff to approve it, they have to demonstrate that they can get access from Magnolia Road, and the way they would do that is by American Ag Credit granting an access easement to the prospective buyer.
And by matter of the establishing ordinance for that, it already defines it as a shared access, right?
I don't believe it does. But
Okay.
that would be either through that terminology or having a similar condition that could be inserted between first and second reading would be the way that could be addressed.
Yeah, I think I probably would prefer it between first and second reading in order to get it addressed right, so that those that are marketing it, potential retailers or businesses that might want to be out there, would just have an easy answer to the question when somebody in their legal staff wants to see a piece of paper before they move forward, just to know that that's not going to tie things up. And maybe that's worrying about a little bit more, but I think if it's clearly documented, it'll make the process easier to get that second lot moving.
That is the primary thing that we wanted to bring to the Commission's attention, is that what you looked at in July, the driveway straddled the prospective
Right.
property line, and now it's entirely on American Ag Credit's site.
Yep.
Although it's still supposed to function as a shared entrance in the future.
Yep. Okay. So within the motion, just request that staff include language to address the shared drive considerations between first and second.
And then we also need to, what's the proper wording you want for the, what you call our little agreement that we have for road maintenance? I've already,
Consent to special assessments.
there you go. Okay. And add that in the language as well.
That's what you'd like, yes.
Yeah. Okay, are you ready for a motion? I'll give it a shot. Mayor, I'd move at this time we approve ordinance number 12-10646, amending the vacation ordinance authorizing the vacation of the platted restricted access on Magnolia Road along the north side of Lot 1, Block 1 of the Premier Edition to be shifted 50 feet to the east as requested in amended petition number 4348 in the location and dimensions depicted on the petitioner's amendment site plan drawing, and also add, before second reading, language describing that break as a shared access and requiring the signature of a consent to, what is it, future assessments, future specials
Yes.
at that time?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 12-10646, with also the direction of staff to prepare between this first reading and second reading language for shared access consideration as well as consent to future specials. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0. We now move on to the consent agenda.
Item 6.2, approve the minutes of February 25th, 2013. Item 6.2, resolution number 136980, authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement number 309-12 with the Kansas Department of Transportation for federal aid HSIP funding for traffic safety improvements at the Cloud Street and 9th Street intersection.
Any items on the consent agenda the commissioner wishes to have pulled? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move we approve consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0. We now move into development business.
Item 7.1, application number Z12-25, requesting a change in zoning district classification from PC7 to I2 in order to allow the construction of a truck terminal on the east side of Yost Drive. Sub-item 7.1A, first reading ordinance number 1010681.
Mr. Andrew?
Mayor and Commissioners, I'll explain briefly what has occurred between your last meeting and this meeting. At its February 5th meeting, the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of a zoning change from PC7 to straight I2 zoning, and in doing so, they agreed to rely on assurances from the applicant that private deed covenants would be filed requiring the buyer, prospective buyer, Old Dominion, to install paved parking and front yard landscaping when they developed the site. You took the approach of agreeing with their findings as to the land use in this location, but you wish to approve the lesser change from Plan C7 to a Planned Development District I2 with a requirement that development of the site conform to the approved site plan and that paved parking and front yard landscaping be required as part of plan approval. So attached to your report there is a modified ordinance 1310681. It's been modified to add a fifth finding based on your action, which made a finding that because this is a gateway into the community, that approval of this use is best done through a planned development district to ensure that paved parking and landscaping are required consistent with its gateway location. The three conditions are limiting use of this property to C7 permitted uses plus truck terminals and warehousing added, but not opening this up to any other I2 uses. So it's basically C7 plus truck terminals and warehousing. That condition also reinforces the requirement that parking lot and driving aisle paving requirements and front yard landscaping requirements apply. The signage would be applicable, the C7 sign regulations, which are most appropriate for interstate property, would apply, and then the approval is conditioned on the development occurring conforming with this plan that's been presented to you. So if there was something completely and dramatically different proposed on that property than what you have on the screen there today, that would have to come back for approval. So that was our best effort at carrying out your direction. There was some concern expressed that if we simply applied our commercial lot formula to this lot, it might result in a landscape requirement that couldn't be met. But we ran through the calculations, and this plan that is in front of you, while it doesn't have a specific landscaping component to it, this green space area that's provided along Yost Drive, and then you combine it with a similar strip abutting I-135, has 89% more green space area provided than what our minimum requirement would be. So essentially, if you look at this entire frontage here, there's a 30-foot green space between the property line and between there and where any paving occurs. So except for 2 driveway openings, their entire front yard setback area is green space. So it exceeds what we often get on some of our commercial developments. So it's certainly not lacking for area that can be used for green space or buffers. But with that, I'd be open to any questions you have about the Planned Development District ordinance.
Any questions of staff? Thank you, Mr. Andrew.
Thank you.
Mr.
Mayor, I
Gage?
have, one quick one. Dean, to keep this on the timeline that we're trying to keep it on, were we also going to look at if the first reading was approved to also bring it to second reading?
Yes, I neglected to. I think the ordinance, if you look at it, we may have, or I may have, jumped ahead, but I had March 4th as the approval for first and second reading. I'll defer to Mr. Bankston again on the mechanics of that, but per what you indicated at your previous meeting, you'll see the ordinance attached has March 4th as first and second reading, anticipating that that's what you may choose to do. Sorry.
Yep. That's based on a compelling public interest.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Do we have anybody from the public that would wish to speak on this? Mr. Mays?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Jeff Mace, Compro Realty, 157 South 7th. I didn't get the ordinance today, so the one piece that jumped out at me here was that I thought we were doing PDD I-2. And you're saying, no, we're doing PDD to allow the truck terminal, but we're not changing the ordinance for the zoning classification? I thought we were just going to make it PDD where we were rezoning it to I-2, but it had to be hard surface paved and have the landscaping.
Yeah, the actual Section 2 provision is Amendment District PDD I-2 Light Industrial Plan Development District. And it calls out the legal description shall become part of a PDD I-2 Light Industrial Plan Development District.
Okay, very good. I got when I got the email today, all it was the notes. I didn't get the ordinance along with it, so I was unable to see all that. So.
Yep.
I'm gonna, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Any questions you have of me?
Nope.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I moved we adopt ordinance number 13-10681, requesting a change in zoning district classification from PC7 Planned Highway Commercial 2. Do I need to say PDD I-2 at this point? Yeah. Light industrial.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve on first reading ordinance number 13-10681. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0.
Mayor, I'd move at this time there's compelling public interest and have a second reading on ordinance number 13-10681.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve on second reading ordinance number 13-10681. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Crawford,
Aye.
Commissioner Householder,
Aye.
Mayor Jennings.
Aye. That motion carried 3-0. We move on to administration business.
Item 8.1, second reading ordinance number 1010680, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the future land use designation of a portion of the Yost addition.
This ordinance number 13-10680 was passed on first reading February 25th. Since that time, no comments have been received. Do we have any public comment on this item today? Seeing none, I bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 13-10680 on second reading.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve on second reading ordinance number 13-10680. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Crawford,
Aye.
Commissioner Householder,
Aye.
Mayor Jennings.
Aye. That motion carried 3-0.
Item 8.2, Resolution Number 136986, providing for the advisability and authorization of infrastructure improvements and a development agreement in the Quail Meadows Estates Edition.
Mr. Stack?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is Quail Meadows Phase 5. There's been quite a few different phases in this area of town, about the southwest corner, well, northwest corner of Schilling and Ohio. Petition was submitted by Mr. Stanley Byquist. He's the president of Quail Meadows, Thursday of last week, requesting drainage, streets, storm, and sewer improvements to serve 20 residential lots in the Quail Meadows Estates Edition. He is the owner and meets the statutory requirements for sufficiency to, there are no delinquent specials. He's the owner and owns the majority of the property. Engineering feasibility report is attached. 100% of the cost improvements are proposed to be assessed to the benefit district, so no city costs would be a part of this project. Basically, the property owners have their choice to pay a lump sum distribution or over the course of 15 years. And this project is a little unique. I guess we're doing this more and more, but it has the development agreement associated with it as well, where the developer has already gone out for bids and received favorable bids to make their project a good one, with lot assessment averages of around $19,500. So it's a good. They've been able to negotiate some very good rates for the improvements, and thus will front load. Basically, they will be the. We will not go through the city bidding process. They've already gone through that process, and then once the project is completed, the development agreement allows them to be reimbursed for their expenses, and then it will be assessed in the 2014 tax rolls. So I would definitely entertain questions. And Wayne Nelson has worked on many phases of Quail Meadows, so he can answer any specific questions.
Any questions of staff? Thank you, Mr. Stack.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Good afternoon.
Thank you. Stan Byquist, 2601 South Ohio. Thanks for looking at this, and I hope you'll approve it. This is the plan stage 5 in the subdivision that was started in 2005. And this kind of wraps up the planned residential. This is the last piece of residential at this time that's zoned that way. We're in a good market right now, a fairly good market, let me put it that way. And there are builders desiring building lots that are nowhere near the dike because of additional costs, and that can take basements, and that is what these lots are. Price range of homes will probably be between 180 to 220 when they're completed, depending on amenities. So with that, if you have any questions on the process, or I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions of Mr. Byquist?
I think so.
Okay.
Getting closer to Ohio Street.
Yeah, true.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and action.
Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 136986, approving of advisability and authorization resolution number 136986 related to establishment of a special improvement district for street drainage, water, and sanitary sewer improvements in Quail Meadow Estates, Phase 5.
Second?
Motion and a second to approve resolution number 13-6986. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0.
Item 8.3, authorized purchases to convert 2 city vehicles to all-electric experimental vehicles.
Mr. Frazier.
Mayor and Commissioners, the Public Works Department's Central Garage and the Parks Department's Recreation Division have budgeted funds in the 2013 budget to convert vehicles to be powered by electricity in order to evaluate the technology. Staff intends to evaluate the performance of the alternative fuel vehicles as a possible way to save funds. The comparison of cost when we look at a gas-powered vehicle would run about $15,000. An electric vehicle, hybrid gas electric, or a compressed natural gas vehicle would run in the range of between $30,000 to $35,000 as a comparison. Staff believes a vehicle conversion at half the cost of a new vehicle would be the best choice in a purchase of an alternative fuel vehicle. A Parks Department 1994 Chevy S10 and a Public Works Central Garage 2002 Chevy S10 have been selected to go through the conversion process. The two vehicles were selected because they are general purpose vehicles used in town for short trips, although in the future we might focus on sedans or compact pickups. The two pickups were available at this time and were comparable to sedans, so we thought that that would be a good selection. Electric-powered vehicles were selected over the other types of alternative fuel vehicles because of the initial research done by the Central Garage showed that the electric vehicles might be the best choice in achieving increased fuel savings and reducing maintenance costs. So they evaluated that and thought that the electric is a good one for us to check with. Now the goals in the program that we'd want to achieve is that we'd want to be able to compare fuel usage, vehicle power and range, maintenance cost, driver satisfaction, technician satisfaction. And the evaluation process would include performance reports, maintenance reports, and the driver and technician rating sheets, so we get their opinions on this. The evaluation of this should take 1 year, maybe 2, kind of depends on the data that we get in. Now the conversion is unique in that the vendor that was selected was Electric Blue Auto Conversions in Walton, Kansas. They are considered a sole source provider in Kansas. They will remove the gasoline engines and replace it with an electric motor and provide some other supporting equipment to that. An error was made by the Central Garage who believed that they could go forward with the conversion, not realizing that action was required by the City Commission for approval of this. At this time, the Public Works vehicle is completed and the Parks vehicle is half done. Staff apologizes for this procedural error, and we're working to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Funding for the expenses of this budgeted item are within the sub-CIP Vehicles and Equipment Fund. The cost of the conversion is $12,100 for each vehicle. The cost for repainting each vehicle is about $2,000, and the color decals will run about $200. Staff has identified the following options and recommends option 1. Authorize staff to work with Electric Blue Auto Conversions to convert city units 250 and 1321 to all electric vehicles for $12,100 for each vehicle conversion and spend $2,200 on each vehicle for painting and decal work. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I've got Bob Peck, our fleet superintendent, with us. Bob has done a lot of work on this to prepare for this, and between the two of us, we should be able to answer your questions.
Questions of staff?
Just in general, I mean, just because it's sort of new for us, just tell me a little bit about this Electric Blue Auto Conversions. Have they been around a while, or have other cities tried this, or is this something kind of unique to us? Or
I'm going to have Bob come forward and answer that. I'm not familiar with that on their reputation. Bob checked into this.
Sure.
And he'd be able to answer that for us.
Yes, Wayne Alexander is the owner's name, and he's well-known in the electric vehicle industry. He's done quite a bit of conversion work for people in the Kansas City area as brought to my attention by Clean Cities folks there. And so he's well respected in the industry, and I've seen the first vehicle that was completed, and it's really well done, and I'm pleased with his craftsmanship.
And then any idea about the life on these? A lot less moving parts, I assume, so...
Yes, all there is the electric motor, a few little the controllers and chargers, and then we have a bank of 24 batteries, and that will be our biggest expense is the batteries, but they're expected to run 4 to 5 years lifespan, depending on our use, you know, how far down.
Have you worked down the range with Exide yet, or? we just did something with Phillips, come on. I mean, yeah, get these guys going. And then, what are kind of ranges on these between charges? I mean, is this something your guy can get in and drive all day and charge overnight, or?
Typically, it'll run about 50 miles per charge. We determined that was adequate for what we do at the central garage. Our parts truck runs about 20 miles a day.
Oh, perfect.
So we could get 2 to 3 days maybe off of it. It still can run 70 miles an hour, but our range diminishes the more you use it. If we went to lead acid batteries, it was the cheaper way to do it and easier for us to maintain and replace. If we went to lithium ion batteries, we could go 70 to 100 miles per charge, but it's quite a bit more expensive.
And then, does it all fit within the same old engine compartment, or is there?
It's interesting. The S10 pickup is his pickup of choice because of the width of the frame. He can stick the batteries underneath the bed, and then he makes the bed tilt so that we can still use the bed as a central garage and parks. We can still haul stuff in it, and it's a really clean setup.
Install. So visually about the same as any other car that's in there?
You wouldn't know the difference.
Cool. Other than our stickers that we got here.
Hopefully.
Okay, great, thank you.
I don't know whether you did or Mr. Frazier did, but when we got all of the numbers on this to run sustainability comparisons to the shift from petroleum to electricity and looked at electrical rates and all of that, what did it initially look like?
The savings, or?
Savings or projected extra cost, or?
I don't know that we've really calculated any of that yet as to what the projected savings would be.
Okay, so it was just something to do?
No, we did
These are the type of discussions, and I appreciate the apology from staff, but these are the type of discussions that the commission requests to have in advance, especially on such a policy change, be it a good or a bad, but what's the effect on our utilities, what's this going to shift from gas and maintenance, and what are the references that we looked into in other communities for the vehicle that we were looking at, and all of that just didn't happen.
Yeah, you're talking about basically the life cycle cost.
Yeah.
So that you can annualize both the capital and operational costs, which would
We
include
know
energy.
know the sustainability and the shift from fuels to coal power, or however that would be termed in the world today, but just to know those things.
Our projected life cycle cost of the gasoline pickup would run, this was in over a 10-year or a 6-year period, and the gasoline was about $48,980, as opposed to the electric being $15,450. All things taken into consideration, the oil, fuel, the regular maintenance.
Parts. Post the cost of the conversion, so still about $14,000 to $16,000 cheaper as an estimate to run. Yeah, see, they did their homework.
Yeah, $8,000 a year, right? You use that over six years?
I
Is
figured
that what you
over
said?
6 years.
6 years. Okay, that's $8,000 a year, 20 mile a day. Okay.
Expensive car.
And you said it's about a 5-year? Is that what's, and then it would be a battery change out? Okay. And the two units, one's a 94 and one's a 2002, so the 94 is probably pretty retired.
Well, it is based on the internal combustion engine. It's tired, it's worn out, but the only thing that we save from in the conversion is the differential, the drive shaft, and the manual transmission. There's no other wear components from the internal combustion engine that would cause us any problems.
Okay. Thank you. Any public comment on this item? I think as we bring it back to the commission for action, I would just request that our city manager just follow up with all of our departmental managers on these kind of things to make sure that they don't happen again. This would have been a really pertinent study session topic and a pertinent vote to approve before this kind of expenditure. So to sit up here and to have really no other option but to approve it is an awkward position at best for the commission.
I will do that, Mayor. It was actually our intention to have done that ahead of time, and I apologize that we didn't.
Yeah, I was just kind of surprised. I remember the commission prior when there was look at all the smaller vehicles. There was even demos out at the old airport. There were vehicles brought in. There was a lot of in-depth work done with the city commission, and I imagine we could have heard a lot of what we heard today with cost projections and seen photographs from ones done and even those things. But at this point in time, about the only thing we can do is say that we're going to defer the $4,400 in actually painting and decaling these to a future date. But without any even pictures of what the vehicles look like, we can't even make that decision on a knowledgeable basis today. But if there's a commissioner that would like to defer that on painting the vehicles and decaling them and take a look at some photographs of what they look at now, we certainly have the ability to defer that portion of it.
Well, I agree with the mayor that it's kind of an awkward position to be in when we didn't know about it to begin with. So we're sort of approving something that's already been done. Is what we're doing, but obviously mistakes are made. I would move that we authorize staff to work with Electric Blue Auto Conversions to convert city units number 250 and 1321 to all electric vehicles for $12,100 for each vehicle conversion, and delay the expenditure of painting and decal work.
Second. We have a motion and a second to authorize staff to work with Electric Blue Auto, conversion of the two city units in the amount of $12,100 each, and request that they bring back the approval for the painting and decaling of said vehicles at a future commission meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0.
Item 8.4, Resolution Number 136987, authorizing and providing for the issuance of general obligation bonds to finance reconstruction of the downtown lighting system.
Mr. Franz, how's the cost of money nowadays?
Well, actually, I did find out this morning, is looking at some investments, there is a little bit of a curve going out into the future.
Does that curve go upward?
Slightly.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to ride a sled down it.
Okay.
No, wouldn't be much fun. Resolution number 136987 provides the authority to issue GO bonds to finance the reconstruction of the downtown lighting project under what we colloquially call the Major Traffic Way Statute, KSA 12-685, permits us to make improvements to traffic ways that have been designated as major connectors throughout the city. We've just finished adding several segments in the downtown district to that system. This authorizes bonds up to an amount of $3,110,000 to provide financing for the improvements that we have authorized or that we have contracts with Johnson Controls for that project. This will be a little bit unusual in the sense that we do not currently plan to issue temporary notes. We'll just go directly to bonds this summer as the project is underway, and the timing is such that it will work well without issuing the notes. That will save us some interest costs. This project was included in the capital improvements plan at an estimated cost of $3.2 million. Provided things go as planned and providing for the costs of issuance, it looks like it may finish out at about $3,150,000. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions of staff? Thank you, Mr. Franz. We have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I bring it back to the commission for any discussion and action.
Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution number 13-6987, authorizing and providing for the issuance of general obligation bonds to finance reconstruction of the downtown lighting systems under authority of KSA 12-685.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 13-6987. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0.
Item 8.5, authorize the mayor to enter into a service agreement for the removal of bats at the Bicentennial Center.
Mr. Laughlin?
Because I really want to throw my, I wanted to throw my bid in on this. I would almost do it just for fun. Not that bats are bad. They're good animals. They're nice animals, but
Sure. The item you have in
it
front
just
of you,
sounds like fun, you know.
just what Luann had mentioned. A little bit of background on it. When Global Spectrum came in, one of their first priorities was to do a facility assessment. We've talked about that before. One of the initial things they noticed was obviously the presence of bats in the facility. As they had several folks come through and look at it, they realized the magnitude of the problem, that we do have a lot of bats in there. There is a lot of buildup from the bats being in there for a period of time. As such, they went out and secured quotes, talked to 19 different vendors to try to identify a company who would be most suited and who could do the work, number one, and then number two, seek quotes to see what that would cost. You have those in front of you there as well. Basically, it's a 5 or 6 step process. Number one, and I'll try to keep this brief, but you have to seal up all the cracks, crevices, and different things that have developed over time that allow those animals to get into the facility. The second piece, and they use actually what's called bat cones, where they can fly out, but they cannot fly back in. That's part of it as well. The second piece then is nighttime inspections, because obviously that's when they're more active in the evening when they're leaving the facility. As part of that, we're coming into the mating season, so timing is somewhat a factor here, as that happens, as I understand it, in May. Next piece is in the cleanup and removal. So they will go through and actually clean all of the residue out. The second step to that part is then sanitizing it, because it does have some components that need to be sanitized and cleaned up. And then they would treat it for bat bugs after that, followed by a year's worth of service. Long story short, it's a multi-step process. Number one, get all the cracks sealed up. Number two, push them out where you want. Number three, basically clean it up and sanitize it. This is part of what they have included in their CIP. The original budget before that was $36,230. Our quote that we will recommend is slightly under that. Basically, the short version is staff is recommending that we approve the Orkin proposal in the amount of $35,200. Other options, reject quotes, and we can move forward with the project at a later date, or provide a different option, or look at alternatives. And open it up to any questions or thoughts.
How many bats are over there? I mean, how do you, I mean,
More
I've
than-
never seen any.
More than 2.
The estimates were several thousand.
Really?
Wow.
Really?
That's a lot of money per bat, though. It's like a couple $1,000 a bat. Well, let me do my math here. So I could shoot him
least
for
a
less
couple
than, I'm
hundred.
telling you.
I guess I shouldn't.
Can we sell that guano to some of the makeup manufacturers? Or is that an urban myth? They don't really
Well,
use
that was
that.
brought up today. There's also was a discussion of Ozzy Osbourne with a concert, too, to help with the bat removal. But
Yeah.
We
I didn't
tread
get any
lightly in
traction.
this ground.
Oh, no. That's, I think it was Alice Cooper, though, wasn't it? We're all the bids, in seriousness, we're all the bids. I just saw the American Pest had the removal treatment, sealing cracks and gaps, but then I also saw where Orkin had it mentioned on theirs. Do you feel like all bids were equal service? They were all seal, rid, clean, they all were offering the same thing?
Basically, as we understand it, yes. Now, these were quotes. These were not official bids, just to be clear. These were
Sure.
quotes, but they did call 19 different companies to try to get really in-depth and had them out to look at the site and what have you to truly identify what the issues and problems were. So they do believe, based on their research and the information that we have, that this should take care of the issue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing that, I bring it back to the commission for any discussion and action.
Mayor, I move that we authorize you to enter into a service agreement for removal of bats at the Bicentennial Center.
I'll second that with the hope that it works better than it did when the city tried to get rid of the pigeons downtown.
Well, we'll get Batman going, that's for sure. We have a motion to authorize the mayor to enter into a service agreement for the removal of the bats with the Orkin Corporation in the amount of $35,200. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0.
Item 8.6, first reading ordinance number 13, 10,676, amending Chapter 8, Article 1, Division 2 of the Salina Code by amending Section 8-31 and adding Section 8-59.1, providing a local amendment to the 2006 International Residential Code by adding and amending Appendix F, radon control methods.
Mr. Delors.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Back in, I believe, 2009, when the 2006 International Residential Code was adopted, there was only one appendix was adopted with that. That would be the Appendix G for swimming pools. The remainder of the appendices were not adopted, amended out. Back on July 10th, at our Building Advisory Board meeting during the public comments time, Mr. Sean Estrel from the Health Department, Salina Health Department, Salina County Health Department, and Bruce Sneed from Kansas State University discussed the effects of radon. Radon is, of course, been a topic that has been around for the last 10, 15, 20 years. And it was put into the building codes in the 2000 cycle, in the new international codes. It was not in the uniform codes. Saline County has been designated in the category of high radon levels, as you can tell by the map that was one of the enclosures, AF 101, which shows we are in the middle of a high radon level. Several of the builders in Salina already use some of the radon-resistant construction techniques, but it is not a code requirement. I might also call your attention to, in the blue sheet, it talks about the testing, which has never been required. It has always been recommended with a purchase of a home. It is just strictly a recommendation, and it would still remain that way. At the September 12th meeting, they actually, Mr. Sneed and Mr. Estrel came to the Building Advisory Board to change the ordinance to adopt Appendix F. At that time, we put together a subcommittee to discuss and to review Appendix F. It was made up of 3 Building Advisory Board members, a home builder, electrical contractor, and a realtor, staff liaison, and Mr. Sneed, Mr. Estrel, and one of the local contractors,
Chad Robison from Building Performance Company also joined that group, along with Mr. Mike Flory from the Salina Home Builders Association. They met on 2 occasions, September 21st and November 16th, and Mr. Sneed, of course, helped them to make sure that we weren't reduce any of the effectiveness of the radon control methods. A report was taken back to the Building Advisory Board on January 8th to adopt Appendix F with amendments that would allow for present construction techniques to continue and to eliminate the requirement of installing a complete radon mitigation system in every new home constructed. A complete system would be what we would call an active system. What we're talking about, the proposal today is talking about a passive system. In other words, it kind of works through convection. It works, and it also sets up the allowance to, in the future, if the passive system were not adequate, then a homeowner would have the option or the opportunity to install an active system at a much less cost than if that were to have to, if this passive system was not in place. And if this is adopted, we plan on training the contractors. We have a class set up the end of this month, the March 28th contractor continuing education class, where Mr. Sneed is going to come help teach our contractors a little bit about the radon. The ordinance, as it sits today, has been amended in a couple areas. I just wanted to call your attention to the vapor barrier is one that they talked about, that as long as the slab, the basement slab is prepared properly, it's caulked, the sump pumps are sealed, then we did not feel that, or the subcommittee did not feel that it was entirely necessary to have the polyethylene underneath the slab. So that is one of the things. The other thing we deleted was the requirement for providing a electrical circuit for the future, and that would basically be a receptacle in the attic that was a dedicated circuit for that fan. If in the future they were going to require, or were going to need to activate the system. Basically, the new requirement requires the sealing of the slab. What is different from what we do today would be the sealing of the slab, which I had mentioned, and a vent pipe that goes from the basement slab all the way up through the attic and out the top of the roof to vent the gas. And also they would connect that to the drain tile system, which we now have, which is required in all homes. We have some homes even require, if we have a high water table, some areas require an interior and an exterior drain tile, but this would be connected to the interior drain tile system. So basically what would happen is the gas comes up and it hits that slab, and it goes out to where it catches the drain tile, which is around the perimeter of the structure, and it would capture that gas, and the gas would then go up to the pipe and out through the roof. Basically, in layman's terms, that's what happens. What we have today is the ordinance, and we have 3 options for you today. I also, Mr. Sneed, Mr. Estrel, Mr. Robison, and Mr. Flory are all here today in case we have any questions. And the 3 options are, number 1, pass ordinance number 13-10676 on first reading by amending section 8-31 and adding section 8-59.1 of the Salina Code by adopting Appendix F of the 2006 International Residential Code with local amendments. And we also always have a 90-day implementation period, and that's the period of time where we'll train the contractors in this new practice. Number 2, pass ordinance 13-10676 on first reading by adding section 8-59.1 of the Salina Code by adopting Appendix F of the 2006 International Code with a 90-day implementation period and amendments the City Commission deems necessary. Number 3, deny ordinance number 13-10676. And staff recommendation today is option number 1. Will be available for any questions.
Questions of staff?
Yeah, have they given any estimates what the added cost to construction will be to add this in, or?
I believe Bruce and them have put that at around $200 to $300. Is that about right?
Bruce Sneed with Engineering Extension of Kansas State served as a technical resource to the committee. Generally, additional cost to make the home radon resistant can be from $250 to $500. Fixing an existing home typically is $900 to $1,200 to $1,500. It does depend on the practices locally. There are builders that have been doing this as a standard approach, some in the community already. So those are ballpark figures. There's nothing in the current Salina construction practices that the committee reviewed that seem to raise any concerns in terms of additional costs. The piping is minimal. We're talking 20, 30 feet of pipe added, caulking and sealing. So we would hope that the cost would be in the neighborhood of that 200 to 400 range.
And then has there been any feedback from the builders, what their thoughts are? This is just one more thing they have to do. I mean, I can just imagine as it is.
Well, I don't know that it would be appropriate for me to characterize the builder response. I think that's up to them. We did do presentations at the home show. We did do a presentation to the Home Builders Association and tried to talk and address all the issues, but I wouldn't want to characterize their position.
Sure, sure.
Alvin, if you sell a house, a homeowner sells a house now, are they required to meet those radon requirements?
No,
the
this
next
would
buyer?
be just for new construction. This would be to prepare the,
Well, I know this is, but I wondered if we have something covering homeowner.
no, we don't. Like I say, it is recommended that the homes be tested, whether they're new or old. That's a standard practice in the Realty Committee.
Yeah, I know as part of your real estate contract, it's an option, and you can have it done. The bad thing had been for a long time, and I know as realtors, we were frustrated that the people doing the test were also the people who sold the mitigation systems. So it's frustrating a little bit, because and I would somewhat disagree where it says that it could attract more potential home buyers. That people tend to get freaked out anytime they see anything in a house that mitigates any kind of issue. Oh, we put this in here to stop mold. Oh, do you have a mold problem? Oh, we put this in here to stop radon. Oh, is there a radon problem? You know what I mean?
Mention mold, because that's
Right.
probably next on
That's
the
probably
list.
next, and my concern is, I hate to sound like the NRA on this one, but the long, slippery slope, you give them one, you know, and it does happen here, it does occur. Houses that are sealed up, in basements, it's a naturally occurring gas, and it does happen and can be harmful, but I don't know that I would agree that people are going to go, oh, great, it's got a mitigation system, let's buy it. You know, they just...
That's why I didn't add
it's
that
just-
in my talk,
just-
but we've talked to several realtors in town, and it is all over the board.
Yeah.
Some places are fine. I mean, you can go, one house is fine, reading a 2 or 3, next door can be 5 or 6, and across the street can be 20 or 30. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's all over the range.
Yeah, there are definitely areas of town that seem to have more of it. I don't know if it's because I won't characterize the areas, but the ones that had a lot of cracks in basements and things we tended to find had this issue. And I'm sure it goes along with why they talk about sealing up the basements and doing the process. So.
And that's why we didn't want, the Appendix F requires a full active system with a fan in the attic and plug that fan in and that thing is running all the time. And we decided that since it was all over the board and the committee talked about that, at least if you have the infrastructure in the house that you can activate that system. Even the passive system has gotten quite good results. They've tested some that were high, and they've even put in the passive system, and that has reduced it significantly, even taken it down below the 4, the maximum level.
There, yeah, I would think so. And it is cheaper to do it front. Like I said, I know how it is. Every new rule is this, and it is cheaper to do up front, and it's probably a lot more attractive than the later system, which seems to, you talk about drawing attention when you walk in the house, and first thing you go, what's that? You know.
Is radon a deadly gas, toxicity issue, carcinogen? What's the
carcinogen.
overall?
It's a cancer. It's been shown to cause cancer, and I'm sure Bruce and Sean can.
Sean Estro with the Salina County Health Department. Yes, radon is a carcinogen. It's a second leading cause of lung cancer, the first among non-smokers. So it kills roughly 21,000 people a year. If you go through the stats, it kills roughly 200 in the state of Kansas and approximately about 17 in the county on a yearly average.
Okay. Thank you. Further questions of staff?
Mayor, if I may, one quick point. Mr. DeVores mentioned a deferred effective date, and I confirm with the city clerk that in preparing the ordinance, we did not provide for that. So if that is to be the case, we need to address that. But it would just be a matter of inserting the number of days that would be expected to be.
Right, the 90-day implementation period?
That was my understanding. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Mr. DeVores?
Yes, that's standard with all of our practices. We try to give the community a 90-day implementation period, kind of a heads up, and that'll be a training period also. Like I said, on the March 28th class, Mr. Sneed's going to come talk to our contractors about that, and we'll publish it in the newspaper. That gives us our newsletter. We will try to notify all of our home builders to give them a heads up on this, and that's what that 90 days is for. So it's not as overnight like, whoa, you just changed the rules on me.
I got my plans done and ready to submit, and now I got to go and do a change order to the architect, get them redrawn. Yeah. Okay.
So Greg, if the motion is to approve this, would it assume that they would want to amend the motion, or have an amendment to the current drafting of the ordinance to include the 90-day, and ask that we update that on second reading?
That would be yes.
Okay, so turning attention to option 1 in the blue sheet, then there should just be notation to incorporate option 1 language into the ordinance prior to second. Do we have any public comment on this item? Bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move we pass ordinance number 13-10676 on first reading by amending section 831 and adding section 8-59.1 of the Salina Code by adopting Appendix F of the 2006 International Residential Code with local amendments. And is this where we're getting to the 90-day implementation period? Do we need to mention a date at the end of that?
Well, an incorporation of into the ordinance prior to second reading.
Yeah, do we need to add
That
that?
suffices. The ordinance would then just speak in terms of 90 days from the date of publication.
From the date of publication? Okay. And then and the date will be provided by second reading, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve ordinance number 13-10676. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0.
Item 8.7, resolution number 136988, authorizing and providing for the issuance of bonds to finance construction and improvements to the Bicentennial Center.
Mr. Franz, money still good as it was earlier in the meeting?
As far as I know.
Okay, good,
And we're
good.
back to bats, kind of.
Okay.
The resolution provides for financing for improvements to the Bicentennial Center. In late 2012, City Commission approved a capital improvements plan for the center that had quite a number of different sorts of improvements included in it. Those have now been prioritized and scheduled through the time for construction in 2013 and 2014. We will try to schedule that construction to fit the slack seasons. It's basically summertime. Specific construction contracts and purchase requests will be coming to the City Commission for review and authorization over that period. You just had the first one tonight, which was the bat removal. The resolution provides for up to $8,750,000 in bonds to be issued. And once again, we're not anticipating temporary notes on this. Construction season and available for the center, and the timing of the bonds is such as that they'll work pretty closely together. Currently anticipate issuing about $2,050,000 in August of 2013, and then the remaining $6,700,000 in August of 2014. That could change somewhat based on the final configuration and timing of all the project components that ultimately would be approved. This is included in the capital improvements program. An estimated cost of $8.7 million with a payback term of 20 years. The two-step process will end up with a 21-year term because part of it will be phased. Again, I would stand for questions in the event that you have any at this point.
Questions to staff? Thank you, Mr. Franz. Do we have any public comment on this item? I'll bring it back to the commission.
I would just say that two commissioners dodged some big $11 million bullets today. That's just,
They probably won't be printed in the paper
listen,
tomorrow.
I'm going to make the motion so I can spend $12 million of the taxpayers' money in one day. It's got to be one of the single biggest in a while.
You're on a roll. Don't stop now.
That's right. Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 13-6988, authorizes and provides for the ultimate issuance of bonds to finance construction of improvements to the Bicentennial Center under the authority of KSA 12-1736.
Well, even though I didn't vote for it to begin with, I will second the motion since it is the commission's decision to do this.
I'm glad you don't believe in unfunded mandates. Motion and a second to approve resolution number 13-6988. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0.
Item 8.8, Salina County Health Department roof repair cost estimate preparation.
Mr. Gage.
Mayor and Commissioners, thank you. As you know, over the last few months, both the city and county officials have been focusing time and attention on the health department structural roof issues. The city has retained the services previously of Dr. Richard Peichel, and along with Dr. Peichel, he's retained Riley Construction to assist him in some preliminary looks at the roof issue and roof costs, again focusing primarily on the structural aspects of the roof system. On February 11th of this year, both city and county commissions met, had a discussion about the relationship and ongoing aspects of dealing with the roof, and the general consensus appeared to be some form of a 50-50 concept, both with regards to roof repair, presuming that repair is the final option chosen, and also with regards to allocation of operational costs. Since that time, a working group of representatives from both city and county has been formed at the request of both parties. We have met to kind of whittle through the little details that would take up your meeting time and provide you with information to hopefully make good decisions. We have met a couple times, and also in talking with Dr. Peichel, have reviewed various options to potentially look at regarding the roof and repair options. There were a few options provided. One that was really focused on early on that appears to be what our working group believes to be the most common sense option to look at is what we'll call the installation of tension rods, steel plates, and shoes, and basically direct repair of the trusses in their current form. Other options could include a replacement of the entire roof and some other things. And in looking at these, this is the quickest option to address the problem, the lowest cost option, and also an option that does address the long-term aspects, which is required, obviously. The working group believes this is the best option, and as a result, we've obtained a proposal from Dr. Peichel. The proposal includes a cost not to exceed $13,500. The equal split would be $6,750. The county commission is scheduled to meet tomorrow, and we do anticipate that they will both address this, and we anticipate that they will approve reimbursing the city $6,700 or up to $6,750 to equal a 50% share in this. And so as a result, we have a few options for you. We are recommending one, that you approve the attached resolution that authorizes me to execute a professional service agreement with Peichel Engineering in an amount not to exceed $13,500. for the purpose of refining the repair cost estimates for the Health Department, which would include also code-related and other ancillary cost impacts to the repair. And this would be contingent on written confirmation that we would obtain from Saline County as quickly after their meeting as we can get it tomorrow, on the presumption that they also approve reimbursing us 50% of the costs as described in the attached Michael Engineering proposal. Another option would be to execute the same agreement and move forward with the same proposal without an additional contingency related to the work. So in that case, the city would be going on our own. The third option, propose some alternate approach, or ask us to go back and look at some of the options, other options that were provided, or choose not to approve any option at all at this point in time. Staff recommends approving option 1, and we do, again, as I mentioned, anticipate Saline County agreeing to fund us 50%. This is really probably the warm-up and easiest step in this process, because we all know if this work is completed, we will actually have what we believe will be as good a cost estimate as we can get without going into real detailed design work. And then the big policy question of what's the best option with regards to repair, other locations, and all that type of thing will come out at that time. So we really won't know what to recommend until we get that number, and so it's a key aspect. So as a result, staff recommends approving option 1, and be happy to answer any questions about any aspect of it.
Questions of staff? Do we have any public comment on this item? Bring it back to the commission for discussion and action.
I'd say, oh, sorry, I was going to say I appreciate the county's consolidating with us on this, and was going to move, but you can go ahead and move.
I move we approve resolution number 136989, authorizing city manager to execute a professional service agreement with Pikel Engineering in amount not to exceed $13,500 for the purpose of refining the repair cost estimates for the Health Department building, contingent on written confirmation from Saline County indicating their commitment to fund 50% of the cost described in the attached proposal from Pikel Engineering.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve resolution number 136989, allowing the city manager to enter into the agreement with Pikel Engineering contingent upon confirmation from Saline County of their sharing 50% cost. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0.
Mayor, at this time, I move to recess an executive session for 10 minutes to discuss with legal counsel matters subject to the attorney-client privilege, for the reason that public discussion of those matters would waive the privilege and adversely affect the city's interest in the matters, and also recess into executive session for an additional 10 minutes for the purpose of discussing matters pertaining to non-elected city personnel, for the reason that public discussion of the matter would violate the privacy rights of the non-elected personnel involved, and reconvene
Make it
at
6:10 so we can take a
6:10
short break.
Yes,
Okay.
with a short break before.
Right.
Second.
Motion and a second to move into executive session for 20 minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carried 3-0. Do we expect any action?
No, we do not.
Okay. We are currently in executive session after a short break.
Consolidate.